And hello, this is Randall Martin, and welcome to the Tuesday afternoon radio show. And we are so happy that you guys have tuned in today because I have a frequent, if you've been listening to our show, we have a frequent returning visitor, Anthony Geathers, a good buddy of mine, a fellow musician. And today we're not going to be talking about music, but we're going to be talking about something that I think everyone needs to talk about, especially men, and that's your heart. Because Anthony had an incident during his last tour when he came back, and this is a gentleman that's in great shape, and came back and had a quite surprising and shocking incident. We're going to have him talk about it. Also, we're going to have his co-host Gregg Weiss that's going to talk about his experience with heart and heart issues. And we want to change the stigma here. I think a lot of people, especially men, don't want to talk about heart issues because they feel vulnerable. You feel it's just a topic that we don't bring up. You talk about sports and all these other things, but we don't talk about sort of our internal health, especially when it comes to our heart. And we need to change that. And I think that Anthony and his co-hosts their program, their podcast is really designed to do just that, to open up that conversation. But I'm gonna first, Anthony. We're gonna talk to Anthony Geathers first, and again, he is a bass player, musician, producer. And Anthony, I want you to kind of take us back to about a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. You were getting ready to go on a trip. You were actually on this radio program before you went and during your trip.
Yep.
And then at some point during your trip, things changed in regard to your health. So take us back and let's recap what happened.
Absolutely. First and foremost, thanks for having me again because I love being on your show. I would like to start off by saying I was seen as one of the guys that people look at me and go, he's the last guy who would have heart issues. So before that actually all started, so I fly out to Europe, and as I was leaving to go on the trip, I noticed I had a shortness of breath. So not thinking of anything as being like out of whack, I figured, okay, it's a shortness of breath. I can increase my cardio and work past it. I can totally work past it, not thinking once ever that it was heart related. So as I get on the stage and I start playing my heart off, I realized that my shortness of breath got even worse. It got to the point where I was getting really exhausted on stage and not doing a lot of movement. And then I tried working a little harder, and then it would get worse. So every time a song came to an end, I would take a hit of an inhaler and then pour water all over my face and then continue doing the set. And I ended up doing this for about 2 weeks, not realizing that I was killing myself. So I get back home from, got crap in my mouth, excuse me. I get back home from the gig, and I ended up putting on 32 pounds of water weight. And 32 pounds of water weight. I went from 230 to weighing 263, all in a matter of 24 hours. And it was literally overnight. So that experience, I now knew something was seriously off. It wasn't just a matter of having a shortness of breath and going, okay, well, I can work past that. Maybe I'll do more cardio. That wasn't the case. I ended up putting on a lot of weight just through that. It took me, I was cat sitting for a friend of mine once I arrived, and it took me about 45 minutes to walk 2 blocks from a parking space in New York City, and then her apartment was in Cabrini, 181st in Cabrini. It took me 2 blocks to walk there, and that's when I knew something was really off. But still did not cross my mind to find out that it was heart disease. So
Now, I want to
I
give
feel
people
so.
a
I'm
little.
sorry.
Go on. I just want to give people a little insight into what your performance on stage is. If they haven't seen you perform, I mean, you are a maniac. I mean, I've played with you in many places, and you are
Yes.
so active. You got a wireless setup, and you're all over the stage from one side to the next. Really, like it's if you imagine, I want to say Flea from what's his
Red Hot
band?
Chili
Red
Peppers.
Hot Chili
Yeah,
Peppers.
exactly.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
That's you. You're all over the stage. You're on top of speakers. You know, you're in the audience. You're everywhere. So this is quite an exhaustive routine. But you've been doing it for years,
It
and
is.
you've honed it. And you
Yep.
actually train in the gym in cardio to be able
Hmm.
to do this. So I guess when you,
To describe it,
yeah.
someone once said to me, "Dude, you're like doing a 45-minute Zumba class. Like when you're literally starting from the left side of the stage, then you're in the audience, and you're the right side of the stage. So imagine doing that and trying to maintain that while sucking in air, like literally going, trying to breathe air, and then every once in a while turning your back against the audience and trying to slip in some Primatene Mist or one of the inhalers, and do that, and then go right back to work,
Right, and these are big
not
crowds.
realizing,
These are pretty
yeah,
big crowds. You guys are you're with subbing for a bass player over there. These are 5,000 6,000 people. Everybody's energized. There's a lot of adrenaline flowing, and so you really want to give them the best show possible. And this is
absolutely.
so. This is a high intensity a performance. Now I'm gonna do a bit of a cliffhanging here because we're gonna go to Gregg, and Gregg is another very active bass player and musician, and just all around active guy. And what
Greg
happened?
digs in. Greg digs into that bass. When
Greg
he
definitely
hits it,
Right, you
digs
guys
in.
are both very
he's digging
similar.
in.
All right, so what
Well,
happened with you?
um, before I realized I had heart disease, I thought I had flu symptoms and went to an urgent care, and they hooked me up to an EKG, and the doctor says, "Well, I just made an appointment for you at a cardiologist because we think you're in heart failure." And I said, "Well, I think I have the flu." He says, "No, that's what it feels like." And I end up going to the cardiologist, and he says, "Well, you definitely are having heart failure, and we're setting up a catheterization to see what's going on." And 2 days later, I get catheterized and find out that I'm in heart failure, very bad heart failure, and got sent to a hospital. 10 days later, they stabilized me. They put a defibrillator in me, give me my meds, and this was back in 2004. And long story short, uh, 10, 12 years later, everything was fine. I'm medicated. I'm playing my bass. I'm in bands. Everything's going really, really well. And I had to get my battery changed. Okay. So I get the battery changed, and lo and behold, about a year and a half later, I find out that not only is the wire connected to my heart eroded, it's shocking the lining of my heart, and now I have to get all that replaced. Okay, so I get that replaced, and things were going okay. And when I originally had my problem, they put some stents in me, and my stent clogged out, and literally had two heart attacks in one day. Ended up back in the hospital, and they tell me when they fix my stent that my heart isn't healing.
Wow.
So, it's really just you go through these things, and like Anthony said before, you don't prepare for these things, and you always look at the opposite side of what's really happening. And so I end up down in the Bronx, and they tell me my heart is not pumping enough to keep me alive, and that I'm now going to have to get what's called a heart pump, or an LVAD, a left ventricle assistance device. And long story short, I'll say this a few times because there's a lot of detail in all these events. But the thing is that you have a change of your lifestyle, you have a change of your work ethic, you have a change of your outlook on things, you have a change on all these things that you want to do in your life. And now, as Anthony said, it takes 45 minutes to walk 2 blocks, and you're breathing and you're saying to yourself, this isn't the person I am, this isn't the person I want to be. And I went through two open heart surgeries, went to get the pump, lasted 11 months on the pump where they found me a heart, and I got transplanted. And now I'm 2.5 years out on a transplant, trying to start picking up the pieces where it all fell apart, really. And as it turns out, I got lucky enough, and a lot of faith, a lot of support, and a lot of fighting, and you dig deep within yourself. And in my case, it was trying to find my music again, which I did. And thanks to some friends, I got back into a group, and I started playing, and lifestyle changes with all the other things. But what we want to do is we want to bring this show we started, the Change of Heart, and talk about everybody's experience, that moment that people had when everything is just pushing forward in their lives, their families, their careers, and instantly it changes. Instantly you're in a hospital. Instantly you're getting hooked up to wires, and they're feeding you IV solutions, and they're asking you your family history, and they're asking you what did you do, and you're worried about breathing, you're worried about your heart beating, and you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And in my case, down the road, I ended up in a hospital for 6 weeks. The
Mm,
surgery gets
mm.
delayed. They're taking these tests that take 2 days, and you're in a room that has no view, and you're staring at a clock. You don't know whether it's day or night, and somehow you get through these things, and you come home, and you start rebuilding where you left off, and there is no rebuilding where you left off. You have to start new, and that's what we want to do, is bring these things together. I had told Anthony about all my experience when we reconnected after high school, after a bunch of years, and we're both bass heads. We both love to play in bands with people, making music, coordinating whatever it is with a group we're in, and making a greater good out of the sum of the parts. And lo and behold, Anthony gets this opportunity. He goes away. To me, is my hero. And the reason why is I'm not going to Europe, and I'm not playing in bands that are playing in front of thousands of people, and I'm a bar bander. I'll do studio recordings, and I know I'm good, but I'm not out there. And Anthony goes away, and he comes back, and just from talking to him, I sensed something. And 2 weeks later, he's telling me that he's checking into a hospital. He doesn't feel good, and I'm just like when those red flags go off in your head, and you're like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that
Mhm,
is,
mhm.
and you don't want to think it. You don't want to tell him. You don't want to do it. And then he has his experience, and I'm on the other side of it, and I've been down the road with so many procedures, so many doctors, so many ups and downs, that when he came out of it, he really bounced back fast, and he really got back into his swing. And whether he looks back on it or not, that this is what really happened, he's taken the most positive outlook to it, and we decided to start talking about it. And lo and behold, we found a lot of people in a lot of situations had different experiences, but they all had the same thing: a change of heart. And that
Right.
change of heart really reflects on how their new outlook is affecting their lives, their families, and bringing a positive approach to a really dark, serious subject. And
Well,
we want to thank you. I want to thank you again for having us on. It's
oh,
great meeting
my
you,
pleasure. My,
and working all through this.
it's again my pleasure to have you guys on, and I really regard this as such an important topic. A few months ago, I had a guest on, and they were talking about. She's a doctor, and we are talking about heart health, and I was thinking about the way I approach my car and all these other things, and I'm an engineer, so there's maintenance on different things, and you think about periodic maintenance and getting a status update on things, and I equated that to my heart. And she says, you can go and see like what is the status. Well, I'm getting up there, and I want to know, kind of what the status. And I had to really advocate for myself and my doctor to say, I don't have an urgent chest pain right now, but I've had, chest pains in the past, and I want to know. I want to take a couple of tests, not going to the knife, but take a couple of tests and see, what's my heart actually doing. And so they did two tests. They did the echocardiogram, and then they did the other one, which is the catheterization, and that really tells you, not only like the rate at which your heart is beating, and whether it's beating irregular or normal, but what's going in and what's coming out, and how they're with the arteries. And they told me some things that were surprising, And I said, okay, I got to make some changes. I mean, and the most surprising thing for me was cholesterol. I kind of thought that, if you had, I thought they could just go in and just, if they had to, and you had a lot of it, they can just scrape it off. No, they don't do that. They have to open up your vessels to allow more stuff, but that stuff is in there all the time. And so every time I'm thinking about eating, it's like, I'm not going to eat something I know that's now going to leave a residue that's not going to come out. So that changed my approach toward life. But I commend you guys for having these conversations that really help people to understand that you can come through it. You can be, I don't know about better on the other side, but you can certainly be better informed and healthier on the other side of this. And it's a conversation that we need to be having.
I agree.
Well, actually, can I interject that? I'm sorry. You want to go first, Greg?
Well, I just want to say
on Facebook,
I just want to say.
Well, hold on, gentlemen. Hold on. We got
getting delays. So go for it, Anthony.
Anthony, go ahead. We got a little bit of a delay here.
Anthony, go ahead.
Did I lose you? I think so. Now in all this delay, Anthony wants to go first, but now he's delayed. So hold on. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yep. Okay. No, but originally,
you're freezing up.
When I originally my process.
Nope, you're still freezing up. Hold on. We're gonna work on you freezing up. Gregg, go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that, like, in a lot of these cases, there's the remedies are unique to you, and you have to become your own advocate. Maybe I said that before, but your doctors have been through these things with so many different people, yet there are so many different remedies to actually solve what you're talking about. And I'm listening to you, Randall, and you want to know what's going on. And as smart and as aware as we all are, these remedies and these solutions to some of these problems are just so far out of your hands. It becomes another kind of adventure. So it is in a career, and that's understanding your health. And I'd always been called what they call pre-diabetic. And I'm like, well, whatever pre-diabetic is, I'm not a diabetic. And after I'm going through these procedures, my medications gave me high cholesterol and diabetes. And you go, how does that happen? How does that happen? And the thing is, these medications are so powerful to correct the problem of not just the rhythm of your heart, but the electrical system in your body that controls it. And, I'm not trying to get like informative and dark, but call your doctor, call a medical professional, get yourself tested. So at least you have these numbers as to where you stand. Because in my case, it was already almost over and done by the time I figured out I was over and done.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Right. It's so sudden. And I like when you described, and both you guys have both described this, the inability to get a breath in. And when that happens, everything else is secondary, because if you can't breathe, then, there's nothing more important, and there's no more way that you could feel helpless than not being able to breathe. And you don't know, people think, okay, heart disease or heart attack and all that, it's just about your heart pumping, and it is, but what it affects is everything else. So, you don't realize that all these other organs are so interconnected, and that you
to the heart.
have to be proactive. And I'm going to echo what you said. Not only go to the doctor, but listen. We all say, I can make a change for a week or a month or whatever, but if you are experiencing hard things and the doctor says you have to change, you have to change. And make that change a permanent change. Or, as you say, you end up with this long list of medications that have so many interactions that you don't know which way you're going. And so
that's true.
If you can handle it naturally, change your diet, get active, and seek those information, because we so often go back and say, oh, it's a temporary condition. this is going to change. I'll be able to go back to what it was in 2 or 3 weeks. But that's not what happens.
Well, I also want to chime in on the emotional impact of it, because
Yes.
when I first had my prognosis, I was really upset by the fact that, because in my mind I always had superhero syndrome. I figure I take care of myself so I can save the world.
Right.
And all of a sudden now I have now I have this kryptonite called heart disease. Comes out of nowhere. So you go through all kinds of emotional stuff at first. You go through denial. There's no way this could have happened to me. I'm in great shape, so there's no way in hell I could have a heart problem. So you go through your denial. Then you go through your period of, you start crying. I cried. I do the man cry. I cry for 30 seconds, and I go, okay, how the hell did I get here? Then I do okay, what the hell can I do next to get myself out of this? Because I know that I am generally a happy person. I'm a positive person, as Gregg can attest to you. So for me, it was about getting back to my original mindset. But at the same time also realizing I had to make some serious changes.
Right.
I knew that it couldn't be. Well, I couldn't go where it was. I couldn't go back to.
Okay. Yep. You're freezing up again. I don't know why. You're freezing. So just repeat what you said. But I'm going to jump in here and say that.
Up so much.
Yeah. I'm just going to go back and say that. None of us are immune.
Cardiac thing. It's a cardiac.
Yeah, maybe.
Digital cardiac.
Yeah, maybe. It's a cardiac thing.
I have digital cardiac here. Yep.
Well, you know what? Hold on. While you're doing this, hold on, Anthony. Anthony, hold on a second. I'm going to take you fiddle with your mic a little bit. I'm going to take just a moment to tell our audience that you're listening to WGXC, listener-supported radio, and we're glad that you tuned in for this show. And in this episode, we're talking about the heart conditions, and my guests are Anthony Geathers and Gregg Weiss, and they are founding a whole new podcast based on conversations about the heart and your reaction and what you could and should be doing. So now let's get back to our interview and see if our audio has been resumed. Anthony.
We are back. Yes.
So go ahead.
What was the question?
So let's get back to the emotional impact, because you said that you cried, and I know that I felt very emotional when I heard about issues regarding my heart. I don't recall. I don't know if it's my ego or what. I don't recall specific tears, but there was the general feeling of sadness that I had to know that I had to change my life somewhat. So I'm going to generalize it like that.
It's your male pride.
That's right.
It is your male pride getting in there. No question about it. Because when you think to yourself, if you don't necessarily have it in your family, you don't necessarily see. I mean, for example, if you had a father or a mother or an uncle who experienced heart disease, at least you have some reference point. But when there's nothing to reference it to, when it happens to you, you're like, how the hell was I the one to get it and everyone else didn't get it in your family?
Well, I know you, and I know that was probably your reaction. Everyone else is sloughing and going to McDonald's and on the line to the drive-through, and you're running behind the car, doing your workout, and then you're the one, because that gets heart disease, and as I said before, no one's really immune. A lot of athletes, surprisingly, have had heart disease, and when you just had the guy, the football player that's on the field, I think he was in Buffalo, that passed out and had a cardiac event.
LeBron's son had it.
LeBron's son just had a cardiac, and these are very healthy, in the prime of life guys. So
if I can address that for 1 second, there's really two different segments of having that kind of problem. One is what normally happens is a cloggage, where people get their arteries clogged, or the vein coming back in. Usually it's 100% clogged, and that's what causes the heart attack. But the other one is an electrical kind called a cardiac arrest. Mm-hmm. And that could happen, and it's like pulling the wires out of your car. and it's an instant shutdown. And if it doesn't get restored almost instantly, it can cause something called sudden death. Unfortunately, that happened to a friend of mine, and he was walking his dog in a park and just fell. He just dropped, and it's just, he. I'm not saying he's the last person I ever thought would have heart disease, but he didn't have heart disease, and there was an electrical shut off in his brain that instantly stopped his heart. And I believe that's what happened in the case of LeBron's son, because he obviously didn't have a cloggage. You're so young. There's no cholesterol cloggage. And I forgot the name, but it was the Buffalo Bills player who
Yes.
suffered a cardiac arrest. And he got jolted from the hit in such a way, in such a spot, that it literally flicked the switch off. And it's the other side of, they call it heart disease, but it was an electrical failure. And that's another thing. You just don't prepare for something like that. There's no down the road going, oh my god, my electrical system is blah 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 blah. And it's dramatic, it's distressing, it's something you got to live with. And fortunately, these both of them recovered. And I think the big part of recovery was that these guys are exceptionally well fit. They're examples of awesome physical fitness. They work out, they train, and the first person I'll tell you I know like that is Anthony Geathers.
Well, now,
Anthony Geathers, with his experience in his career, this guy can kick over his head wearing a kilt on stage, and it's just, I can't do that. At this point, I can't even lift my feet to my shin. So like it's an amazing thing to see somebody so physically fit not only hit the wall supposedly on an event, but to pick up and recover. And I already know Anthony's working out in the gym again.
yeah. No, no, no.
So
What do you both, you gentlemen? You guys have started this conversation that I hope is reverberating with our audience and your audience, to really again be proactive and to find out the status, but also to hear, like you said, these stories, and have a place to have and hear conversations that are pertinent to your life. What do you guys hope to uncover in your conversations?
I'm gonna let Anthony take that.
Oh, I have found, and I'll give you an example. When Castanari posted my Facebook, she posted on my Facebook what happened to me. I didn't want to. I was too embarrassed. I said to her, I don't want to say anything about my incident, because I felt shame. I felt shame. I felt embarrassed. I felt that, as a man, I'm like, there's no way I can experience this. So I ended up getting over 300 responses from that post, and then I finally responded to it afterwards. And then the funny thing about that is I probably get about 35 private messages on Facebook willing to talk about it, and they would say what happened. I'm comfortable discussing it now. They said I'm comfortable talking about it now. I'm blocking. By the way, I'm logging on from another computer.
Oh, you're cutting out a
There we go. I'm
little
back.
bit.
So I would
Again,
say that I was comfortable. Okay. How am I doing now?
keep
I'm
going.
cutting out. I'm just in case. I'm logging on from another computer. All right. So I felt much more. I felt a lot of the men were much more comfortable talking about it. So, and then they would instantly go into their story. Like if I run into them in public, they would always say, "Yeah, I went through it. What I said, well, it sounds like you're a candidate for our show."
Absolutely. Now, while you're logging on, I'm going to ask Gregg. I'm going to ask you, Gregg, a question. While you're switching up your connection, um, why, in your experience, having all of this dramatic things happen to you, what is your takeaway because this is a very recent thing for Anthony, but it's something that you have lived with and dealt with since 2004.
4, yeah.
Right. What would you
I'm
like
gonna
to
I'm gonna
convey?
start with what Anthony was talking about when he posted on social media that he had an event. And in my case, I did the opposite. I actually shut off for about 6 weeks while I was in the hospital because I didn't want the interactions. I literally shut myself off from everything around me because it became a distraction. And I couldn't focus on my recovery and the treatments and what was going on, and it was pretty intense. It was pretty dark and deep. I don't look at it that way, but other people around me do. And I really try to take the positive side of I'm not giving in. I'm gonna recover, and it's the medical care that I got. I 10, 20 years ago, I don't think people could ever imagine even getting, let alone you go through these things and you're doing it. And getting back to why we're here and what we're going to be talking about is that the whole point of the change of heart is to hear stories from people that have experienced hopefully less than what I went through, and that they had mild incidents, and that they get to continue their lives as they are. And it's as Anthony said, once you tell people that you had an event, all of a sudden it becomes more comfortable for them to tell you, said, wait, this is what happened to me. And without going far out and deep into it, you hear these stories, and you're like, well, I know I went through something, but what you went through seems more intense than what I went through. And like I say to most of these people, you're my hero because you survived it and you recovered from it, and you knew enough to get help and to get treatment, and that you're sticking with it, and that your new outlook on life is so positive that you would never know these people actually had events.
Hmm.
And me going through with what I went through, currently I'm 2.5 years out of a heart transplant. And you start with tons of medications, and the cholesterol numbers you can't imagine people have that are alive. And then you have diabetes onset from the medications and the cholesterol, and you work and you work and you work, and it pays off if you stick with the program, and they know what they're doing. And I'm only 2.5 years out. I'll be 3 years in November. But on Facebook, I'm part of these groups that people are into 30 years of having a transplanted organ. That's mismatching DNA. That's an organ in your body fighting with your body to go, hey, I'm not part of this. I'm making white blood cells to take you out. And your body's going, well, wait a second. I think you're an infection, and I'm going to create more blood cells to take you out. And it's this everyday thing. And you get your blood checked a lot. You have to stay in check. You got to learn what you're doing in order to push forward. And that's what change of heart also is that you're not alone.
Well, so there's life
That
on the
there
other
is a
side.
community out there.
Did
There
you,
is a community out there, that addresses their own issues their own way, whether it's just water pills, or as Anthony was talking about, carvavidol, and you could work out as hard as you want and it won't push your heart because they don't want your heart being pushed.
hmm
And a lot of it is just to resume your life, and just keep pushing forward and stay alive.
Well,
And that's a lot to be blessed for.
well,
So.
one of the things that the other messages that you talk about is that there is hope on the other side. There are changes that have to be made, but there's, like you said,
Mhm.
people live 30, 40 years. It's not, there's not a finality to what you're doing. It's just you do have to make the appropriate changes.
hmm I agree with that. And you meet your doctors, and they're looking at you, and you're looking at them like you're at your last step, and they're looking back at you going, but we've already treated like 1,000 people before you, and you're going to make it.
Right.
And don't be down, and you have to push forward, and you're the biggest part of your own success, and they're there to help you, but at the same time it becomes a really big self-awareness thing.
Well, I again,
So
I commend you guys for the work that you guys are doing, and we've got Anthony back on. Anthony, we've only got a few minutes left, and I want you to sort of key in. I know that you guys are going to have plenty of guests on and looking at this issue from all different ways. But most importantly, you guys are opening up a conversation that needs to happen. It often like it's taboo. As you said, there's a level of vulnerability and shame, which there absolutely shouldn't be.
The shift comes when you finally have. It's interesting. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do something non sequitur. My ex and I used to do. We used to do raised bed gardens, and we were trying to attract young kids who are willing to do it. And I remember one of the people said to me that the reason why a lot of these young kids don't want to do it because they don't see real men actually doing the work. So, and I said, "Well, what do you mean?" They said, "Well, when you think of like these gardener types or these vegan gardeners, it's always from some skinny spaghetti guy trying to tell these young kids how to build things. But if they see someone who's got some size to them, looks like a dude, then they actually go, you know something? Because he's doing it, I'm willing to give it a shot." It's kind of the same thing with as far as men talking about heart issues. If you find that most guys, when they see that another man per se has been affected by it, and the guy was like primo athletic type, and then all of a sudden he's been impacted by it, they feel comfortable talking about it. It's actually quite easy. I mean, Gregg will attest. Like we haven't started our episodes. We have quite a few people who want to be on our show, and it's funny. Like our youngest potential guest, is 34 years old. He's born with a heart murmur. I don't know how old our oldest guest is, but I know that we have a variety of ages. Started off with a few people, and all of a sudden it's really beginning to steamroll into one cool thing. And it's interesting. Not that we're trying to take something that's deep and dark and make it darker. We want to make it so that we take away the stigma, take away the shame and the embarrassment behind having it. Exactly. I had to go through that. Now, for me, it was a very short period of time. As Gregg said, I have been blessed to have had a really fast recovery. I don't take things for granted. I think about how my change of heart is several things every day. It's like, well, I don't take for granted the fact that I've had this fast recovery. I jokingly said, while I was crying in the bathroom when I was doing my man cry, I was saying to myself, you know something? Maybe I should have done cocaine, whores, and fried food and smoked cigarettes and drank alcohol and did all that stuff. Maybe I should have done all that years ago. That I'd be dead at least. But then, of course, I came back and said, no, thank God I did all the good stuff because I'm here to talk about it still. But
Absolutely.
There was that quick moment where I was like, cocaine and horse sounded good for the moment.
Well, when you're ill, you bargain, right? You're ill, you're like, if I get better, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change it. Just let me be able to breathe again, and I'm going to change my ways. And so that's always a good incentive. Yeah. All right, guys, we've got like 1 minute left. How can people find out more about your program? And I know that Anthony, you're a producer, you're a musician, you'll be back on the road playing at some time in the future. Let's give people some information about what you guys do before we wrap this segment up. We've got a minute 30. Hit it.
Okay. You gonna go first, Gregg? Or I can actually tell us where to find us.
I'd let you start and I'll finish.
Okay, so our website is changeofheartpodcast.com or changeofheartshow.com. So CHANGE of heart, HEART, show.com or podcast.com. And our Facebook channels and our YouTube channels will all be the same. So everything will be Change of Heart Podcast or Change of Heart Show. So you'll find us on social media in that way. So I did my research and nothing's taken already. So I'd say in a few days, we'll have it coming soon for the website. And then we'll have up our up and running our social media pages as well.
Okay, you got it, Gregg.
I want to thank Randall for having us on and getting our word out that we're doing a communication show podcast, and what it's about is there's no greater benefit to this than understanding if you've never had heart disease, try and prevent it. And if you've actually gone through it, we do want to hear your story. We want to hear how it's changed you, how,
absolutely. I got to cut it off there. I want you guys,
Okay.
our audience, to check out Change of Heart, and we're going to see you and look for it, and you get it where
Thank
you
you very
can get your favorite podcast, and we'll be right back.